Hello and welcome to a brand new Corn Nation Overreaction. I'm your host, Greg Mahochko, and joining me, this handsome, bearded, backward-capped devil, the one and only Haas Reuter. And I know what you're thinking. Greg, Haas, it's a bye week. We have nothing to overreact to. And I say, nay, because there was still football played this past week. We've got some fun games to take a look at. But first, let's jump in. Haas, how are you, sir?
Good. I'm doing really good. It was kind of a nice bye week to let the overall stress just kind of fall away when watching football. And I replaced that stress with eating a ton of pizza and drinking a few too many Coors Banquets at a local establishment yesterday afternoon.
As we talked before we started rolling, I'd say rolling sound, but rolling picture as well. My oldest was at a Cub Scout camp out. My wife took him. He wanted her to take him, which was fine. But that left me home with the twins. So we peppered in a little bit of college football between some Mickey Mouse and some Bluey and some Elmo because they're two. So
fair enough.
Got a little bit, so kept up to date certainly with some scores and some highlights and for some schools some lowlights, and we're going to do our best to talk about all of them. I want to start, my friend, in the Big Ten West. Does that sound fair to you?
That sounds great to me. Sounds very fair.
Big Ten West, we saw probably the premier matchup in the Big Ten West, Iowa at Wisconsin. Now this was I think Saturday afternoon game.
3 o'clock kick.
3 o'clock kick, and Wisconsin, as young kids today, they're on the struggle bus. Or I don't know, maybe young kids aren't saying that anymore, but they did at one point. Wisconsin mustered a measly 6 points. Iowa, which is still with that Brian Ferentz 25 PPGs, got up to 15. But Iowa left Camp Randall with a W, largely based on kind of what they're known for, defense.
Yeah, Iowa and Wisconsin still have solid defenses, but those offenses look like a couple of Bowery bums staggering around trying to land haymakers on one another, and they couldn't connect. The Big Ten West is not what you would call a bastion of good offensive football. And really what, when you take a look around the league, Iowa took care of Wisconsin, and I'll get into how that kind of affects us here in a minute. Illinois beat Maryland. I'm not sure. What do we have? Do you have the list right offhand, Greg?
I do. So, again, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois beat Maryland. Purdue lost to Ohio State.
Yep.
And I couldn't find anything for Northwestern or Minnesota.
I wonder if they both had byes.
And Nebraska, of course, had the bye.
Well, I'll say this about the Big Ten West. The door is wide open. The door is wide open. And I think the messaging right now moving forward for the rest of the season, if I'm Matt Rule, is I'm reiterating to the guys, like, the door is wide open. Do you want to take advantage of this? It's up to you. Go and take it. Go and take what you think. If you, not to put too fine a point on it, but like if you think that you're capable of this, go and take what you think is your right, because I think we touched upon it earlier in the year where, I said the quote that winners and losers, winners need to be treated, told to get back to the grindstone. Losers just need a little bit of confidence. I think right now as a program as a whole, with how long it's been since we've been a contender on any level, we just need a little bit of confidence. And sometimes that's the faking it until you make it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, right now it's like, this team is starting to carry itself in a way that it would believe. And then it all starts on Saturday with Northwestern. Go out there and score 40 points. Like, you want an injection of real confidence, go and score 40 points in a Big Ten football game.
At homecoming, I believe. No, maybe not homecoming, but the 100th anniversary Memorial Stadium.
And then you know what? The next week against a Purdue team that's not very good, a team that since 2018 we've only beaten once, and that was during COVID. Go and put the boots to them. Go and kick their ass again. And then go. We've been saying this for a couple of weeks now. Go up to Michigan State on November 4th and lock up your bowl eligibility right there. You got 6 wins with 3 to go. Anything on top of 6 is just gravy, Yeah. And if you do that, and approach it. I mean, imagine Maryland imagine us playing Maryland and Lincoln a week after getting our 6th win of the year on the road. That stadium's going to be rocking.
Oh,
and Wisconsin's not that scary. You know what? For Nebraska, what it is Wisconsin's just a psychological barrier. It's just a psychological barrier in our heads. And
because Nebraska's played Wisconsin really very close the last few years.
Last year. We should have won last year, except for Mark Whipple. Mark Whipple not wanting to run the football with 90 seconds left. Instead, we go 3 and out. We shank a punt into the wind, and Wisconsin hits an absolute bomb down to the 1 yard line and then scores. You know, Mark Whipple, that's coaching malpractice right there. He should have been fired even with 1 game to go. I will never, ever get over that dislike of fun.
You will never let it go.
No, I won't. But anyways, you know, like there's a real possibility if we take care of business 1 game at a time, that on, you know, Black Friday, we're playing for all the marbles in the West against Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, go take care of business. Go, you know, I know we dropped a lot of F-bombs last week when we were trying to kind of watch the language, but go fucking take care of it. If you want it, go and take it. You know, it's time that this program walks tall a little bit again.
I want to these numbers are from a source on X or Twitter that, you know, I don't necessarily care for. But allegedly the numbers come from ESPN regarding Nebraska for the remainder of the season. They are projected, their win-loss is 5.5 and 6.6. Their chances for 6 wins is 47.9%, 2.9% chance to win the division, 0% chance to win out. And want to guess what the percentage is the percentage of a chance that they'll win the conference, Hoss?
Less than 0.01.
Close. More than 0.01. 0.1%.
So you're saying there's a chance.
So you're saying that, and not only that, but when you're, and look, I know they're not going to go into every game through the remainder of the season as an underdog, you know, especially when you have Northwestern, you have Purdue. I think, in fact, being favored 12.5 points against Northwestern at this point, you know, less than a week out, it's the first time they've been favored against a Power 5 program this season. But nobody's counting on you to do anything of significance.
No, you know,
and I didn't mean.
No, I was interrupting you.
By the way, John listens to the show. Our founder and fearless leader, John Dam Johnson, says we're too nice when we interrupt one another. he says he says I say sorry too much. John,
I'm gonna say this because I know you're listening out there. What the fuck, man? Drop it in the Slack.
But when nobody is counting on you to do anything, you can do anything you want to do.
Yeah.
It is the best spot to be in for this team under Matt Rule in his first year.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like, no, the expectations are low, and it goes back to the purity of the rise, the innocence of the climb, you know, as he called it. And it's like, just go out there and just play it 1 play at a time and keep stacking those plays on top of one another. And you know, like,
if we die, we die.
I want that. I think I should get that as like my next tattoo or something, you know, just like that. What a great way to basically say, just go out there and let it all hang out.
Yeah.
You know, like,
and look, we talked last week, you know, we knew we lost Marcus Washington for the remainder of the year. I believe it was the ACL. I mean, we're down 2 starting running backs, essentially a quarterback, 3 receivers, a couple players on defense.
And you know, we haven't heard at all. We haven't heard a single excuse out of him.
No. It's refreshing.
Our past 4 staffs would have been, you know, bitching about something. But no, we just get okay, well, we're going to make do. We're going to figure it out. You know, it's like Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan tells his men, you know, gripes don't go down the chain of command.
That's right.
Gripes go up the chain.
That's right.
From where I'm at, you know, and it's like, but how many other coaches would we have heard? You know, like Frost would have been saying it in a post-game press conference. Riley would have maybe not been saying it outright, but you would have been able to read between the lines. You probably would have had Bob Diaco saying some weird shit, you know, or Mark Banker just blatantly saying something that out of pocket. Pelini, we know that he would have, blown up about it at some point. Callahan would have had some arrogant remark, about he was left, from this predecessor. So like it's so refreshing, and it's a sign that we have professionals in the building. And I think that at this point, just go out there one game at a time and take care of business. We talked earlier in the year about being better in game 12 than we were in game 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a good example of like, we had no favors given to us by our first 2 games, and yet we were in a position to win Minnesota. Colorado, I think we were in a position to, really contend in that game if our offense wouldn't have just completely melted down with turnovers and, being able to, the inability to execute in certain areas of the game. And so, you're 3-3 with 6 to go. Like, who you are. You've been through some wars at this point, like, go out there and, go take what you think that you can do. Go take what you believe is yours.
And I love that you reference Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan. He goes on to say, you grab to me, I grab to my super. It would be, that I feel like Matt Rule might be.
He's the best leader we've had since Tom Osborne.
I might say Frank Solich. I don't think Frank Solich would pass the buck.
Solich just didn't have the dynamic personality. That's kind of why, I'll give Rule the nod over.
Now, no, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to poo-poo on a legend and a state hero.
The Solich Civil War.
No, but did Tom Osborne correct? I'm asking. This is a genuine question of interest, not starting fights.
Okay.
I know Tom Osborne was a leader, but was he dynamic
as a play caller or as an innovator? Yes.
I mean, as a leader.
Oh yeah.
I feel like he was more of a, I'll pull you to the side. I'll talk to you one-on-one. I don't know. Again, correct me. He wasn't like a rah-rah guy.
No.
He wouldn't have made a speech like Matt Rule made.
No, but I have heard some things from like some of the guys who played for him who were on the radio from time to time in Omaha. And they said, like behind the scenes, he'd really show it more, to players, like talking about like a lot of guys who played from the late 80s and early 90s have talked about like his open disdain for Colorado. He openly displayed in front of the team, but it's kind of like as the leader of the program, as the face of the program, because in college football, players come and go. Right. They got 4 or 5 years. Coaches are the face of a program. He was kind of that same stoic, solid leader that we've always had. And so, and then he, some people have described him as a little bit boring of a personality, but it especially for that generation of Nebraskan, that grew up, as a young kid during the Depression, World War II, stuff like that.
And again, folks out there, if you're watching this, don't send your hate tweets at the number 5 Heart Podcast. That's the one I'll use for this show as well. Don't send hate tweets. I was genuinely curious. I wasn't casting stones.
Yeah, Greg's learning. We don't diss on learning around here.
No. Well, let's recap the rest of the Big Ten real quick. Michigan started out a little slow. They got down 7-0 to Indiana and then rattled off 52 straight, so no problem there. Rutgers did beat Michigan State 27-24. Ohio State handled Purdue 41-7. We talked about Illinois. I'll tell you what, maybe the surprise of the week was Illinois beating Maryland. I think that might have been considered an upset. Beat them by 3 points, 27-24 on the road in College Park.
The Rutgers totally puked, or Michigan State totally puked against Rutgers.
Well, I don't know if I'd call that an upset with everything that's been going on in East Lansing.
Yeah, well, Michigan State did have a 24-6 lead at one point in the game.
Okay, well, I mean I didn't know that. We could add that to a long list of superb comebacks, which we'll get to as well. We talked about
comebacks.
We'll get there. Trust me, it's on the list. We talked about Iowa, Wisconsin, and how both of those teams have tough defenses, and that's kind of about it. And then Penn State, playing the only game out of conference, took care of UMass I don't know why. This is the one I question, like, why are you playing UMass in October? But it was 63 zip Penn State. But I mentioned all that because I want to talk about a bigger, and I didn't warn you about this one, but a bigger, when we look at scores from ranked SEC teams, Alabama, who's number 11, barely beat Arkansas 24-21. Top-ranked Georgia did beat Vanderbilt, but depending on who you talk to, probably closer than you think, 37-20. We talked about the top two in the Big Ten, number 2 Michigan, number 3 Ohio State, their big wins. And then number 17 Tennessee beat Texas A&M by a score. I don't know. Is it safe to say maybe that the top parts and look, the weekly rankings don't reflect this, and ESPN would never admit it, but is it safe to say maybe that the best teams in the Big Ten are better than the best teams in the SEC?
I don't really know if there's a transitive property there, just because of the fact, it's all about matchups. It's all about how your opponent matches up in terms of athletes, in terms of scheme, where you're playing, whether it's at home or on the road, weather. So I don't really get much into the conference wars, But I will say this: if you want to look at the way the Big Ten's constructed and the SEC's constructed, historically, I thought the SEC probably was better at the top, but the Big Ten was a stronger conference top to bottom with more solid teams middle of the pack. The SEC is very top heavy. But what I think you're seeing this year, I think you're seeing Alabama get ready to take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're starting to see that they just sustaining that level of excellence for a long period of time is a very difficult thing to do. And I think you're starting to see the natural endpoint where it's just kind of like, what, we've been doing this a long time. And, human nature of wanting to relax begins to set in.
There's has been over the last couple of years a noticeable power shift to the eastern part of the conference with Georgia.
Oh, for sure. And Georgia, nobody's out recruiting them. And, Mark Stoops at Kentucky even said it's the best team money can buy. It's legal to do that now.
I was going to say, it's legal now. Not that it stopped him before.
No. Georgia probably wrote the book on it, But yeah, I think you're starting to see – I think the SEC is a bit overrated. I will say that. I don't like to look at it, transitively, in terms of comparison, but I think you are seeing – I think you're seeing the Big Ten get better. I'll put it that way. And I think that's driven a lot by Ohio State, kind of transitioning to being more wide open of an
sure.
Offense, Michigan kind of taking on a little bit more of an NFL model. Penn State recruiting at as high of a level as you're ever going to see. In the West, the West Division, there are some really good football coaches in the West,
mm-hmm.
When you get it on paper. It's not the boring-ass league it was 6 years ago, and it was Ferentz and Fleck and,
they're still there.
And Mike Riley and, Pat Fitzgerald, Lovie Smith, it's, Matt Rule's a damn good football coach. PJ Fleck's a damn good football coach. Luke Fickell. And Ferentz, unfortunately, the dude, he doesn't win. Let me put it this way about Kirk Ferentz. He doesn't win. He just doesn't lose.
Right. Yeah.
He won't go out and win the game. He just waits for you to lose it.
And what it has, it's bumped Iowa up to number 24 in the rankings.
You know what? I want them to keep winning until they come into Lincoln on November the 24th.
That's fair.
That monologue from Jaws when Quint's like, "You ever see a doll's eyes, shark's eyes, chief?" Please tell me you've seen Jaws.
I have. It's been a long time.
Well, it's only one of the greatest movie monologues of all time, Greg.
I'm sorry. You want to reference Saving Private Ryan again? I know right what you're talking about, but
yeah, okay. Well, no, I'm not gonna make an analogy to comparing it to Black Friday to D-Day. That's very uncouth. That's not cool, But I was just gonna say, I could go on and on about Iowa, just like Quint from Jaws. Just talking about if they're highly ranked, and it's maybe not highly ranked, but let's say they're ranked 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And they're coming to Lincoln. Shot at the division title, and we're playing them, and if we win, we go to Indy instead of them. That is going to be one raucous environment.
I want to kind of back up and double down on what you said, is that Iowa doesn't play flashy football. I mean, they're not as smooth offensively this year as they have been in the past. Not saying something, because, again, that's why they put the 25-point per game rule in place in the first place. But they're patient. And like you said, they're not going to beat you. They're going to wait for you to beat yourself.
And that's why they had Frost's number.
Yeah, because undisciplined.
Yep.
Chaotic. I don't think that, knock on wood, that we don't lose any more starters or anybody, really. We don't have the depth anymore to have anybody go down. But by the 12th game of the season, 6 weeks from now, we do have the potential. And look, I know, folks, last week we said the word if quite a bit.
We're still saying if a lot.
Yeah, but I'm rephrasing it by saying we have the potential, just like saying if, just with more words, to have maybe a complete game in all three phases, minimizing our mistakes. Don't beat ourselves. Matt Rule said earlier, I think this week in the bye week presser, he says we can beat every team on the rest of the schedule, and every team can beat us.
Well, that is the best way to put it. We can beat everybody. Everybody can beat us. And I really lean towards we actually might have a shot at this thing, closing it out, And I'm not saying winning out every game, but, just doing enough to win the division. I'm saying that on the basis of our defense, because we're not playing any offensive juggernauts in this conference. We are built to stop Iowa's, offense. We will be able to contend easily, not easily. I'm not trying to disrespect Wisconsin, but that scheme's very similar to what Colorado runs. Mm-hmm. So we've seen it. We bottled up Colorado before the dam just broke because we couldn't do anything offensively. The only offense that legitimately really concerns me moving forward is Maryland. Maryland with Talia Tagovailoa, and, they got Josh Gaddis calling plays, and I believe Kevin Sumlin's on staff now there. That's the offense that scares me the most moving forward. But if we can run the football, play good defense, and not make mistakes, be strong in the kicking game on both sides, we'll have a chance. I think it's going to be a fun last 6 weeks of the season.
I definitely hope so. Obviously, I know that's
give us something to play for, damn it.
Right? Yeah. Don't let's not limp into the offseason. Let's charge into it headlong, or full speed ahead, or whatever. All right.
Sorry to cut you off. Sorry, John, but we apologize on this podcast. We cut each other off. That's part of our brand. Okay.
That's right.
We're embracing it. It's who we are. If we die, we die.
Well, it kind of at the end, though, you want to have meaningful snaps in week 12, or I guess technically week 13. You want to have meaningful snaps.
Nebraska, Penn State, Indianapolis, December 2nd.
That's what we want to hope for.
Yeah. I'm just throwing it out there.
What I was
going to say is I want us to, and because it's been so long as a program since something like this happened, I want Lincoln on Black Friday, when that game's over with, I don't want people shuffling back to their cars, going home, just be like, oh, well, season's over because we lost.
Yeah.
Because that's the saddest thing in life, as a Husker fan when that happens. Done that a few too many times. I want it to be like whoever's at the game, and I'm planning on being there. If it came down to winning the West and we beat Iowa and we won the West, I want downtown Lincoln just to be one big party.
Mm-hmm.
Because, damn it, we deserve it. I feel like this whole program as a whole needs to, think of positive affirmations. Look in the mirror,
It's imagine the weight that will be lifted if such a thing happened. Again, imagine the weight that will be lifted when they make a bowl game, when they become bowl eligible, because that's the first step.
Our rematch with Colorado that I've been calling.
Oh, in the
Las Vegas Bowl.
Las Vegas Bowl, yeah. if they, well, no, never mind. Can't have that in there. All right. I want to take a quick look at next week's schedule for the Big Ten. Obviously, we know Northwestern's going to be in Nebraska, 2:30 kickoff from Lincoln. Iowa, Minnesota. That's another game that could honestly go either way.
Yeah.
It really could.
It really could.
Michigan State, foregone conclusion. I'm sorry. Michigan's going to kill the Spartans.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, Illinois. That's another one, kind of like Minnesota, Iowa. You're not really sure exactly what you're going to get because we didn't expect Illinois to bounce back and go on the road and beat Maryland like they did.
I could see Illinois taking that one, somehow.
But we also know that Illinois or Iowa's defense is better than Illinois, so Wisconsin should be able to move the ball a little bit better.
So I recall that game's in Champaign.
It is,
even though I don't know if it really matters much.
No. No, because I think there'll probably be about as many Badger fans. It's not that far, realistically, from Madison to Champaign. Rutgers in Indiana, toss-up coin flip, my opinion.
Who cares?
And honestly, I'm surprised they haven't flex scheduled this one out to a better time slot. But Penn State at Ohio State.
Oh, what time's that one?
That's an 11 a.m. kickoff.
Oh, big noon.
Big noon.
I'll be watching that one.
That'll be bonkers. So yeah, it's going to be a crazy day in the Big Ten. But we're not going to look forward just yet. We're going to look back. You reminded me of the game that Michigan State let slip away. They were not the only team to do so this past weekend. And let's go to Saturday night before we go to Friday night. Saturday night saw a Mountain West matchup between Boise State and Colorado State. And Boise State was up, I believe, by 20 points. I think it was 30-10 with 6.5 minutes left in the game. Only for Colorado State to come back and win in walk-off fashion. First a Hail Mary, and then walking it off with an extra long PAT because of a penalty on the touchdown. I was watching the highlights of that, of those last 6 or so minutes. I'll tell you, when you line up and prevent, the only thing you prevent is yourself from winning. And that's what happened when Colorado State went down. They moved the ball efficiently on all of those drives. And the Hail Mary, you always say you're supposed to hit it down. When it was batted down, it went right into the arms of a Colorado State, probably tight end or maybe slot receiver. I'm not sure. But what a bit of bad luck. Colorado State, it was a home game for them. They were rocking. Apparently when they score in a night game, they flash the lights on and off.
I thought you were going to say they flashed something.
They might have. They didn't show that on TV.
So that segues perfectly into what you texted me earlier about what you wanted to discuss about the 2-minute offense. Mm-hmm. We good to cover this now, or you want? That's
exactly, because I was thinking about that, but I was also watching part of the Wisconsin-Iowa game, and Wisconsin was actually starting to move the ball a little bit when they were in their 2-minute offense. Towards the end, it ended up not going anywhere. But I thought, because we saw this in Champaign just last week against Nebraska, Nebraska, Illinois started moving the ball a little bit in chunks. Is that why does that happen, Haas?
Well, a lot of it's the defensive alignment. They're going to line up and prevent, or they got to line up at a certain depth and just want to keep everything in front of them.
Right.
And a lot of times those 2-minute drills, it's a set of plays that they practice so many times. There's no, specific game plan related play that they're like, oh shit, what am I supposed to do on this play, when they're tired, thinking about, what their assignment is on one play out of the 200, that they practice. And so like, it's just a case of, being prepared, and then the defensive alignment there.
So the repetition, the more reaction rather than having to think about it. Mm-hmm. So I feel like in the history of football, both professional and college, I have seen where, some teams kind of move at a tempo that is reminiscent of a 2-minute drill. Why isn't it woven in a little bit more frequently?
Well, you see a lot of teams go no huddle, nowadays. That's probably the majority of the teams in the conference that, or in the country. They don't huddle, and, they're just getting to the line quickly. But then when they're getting to the line, there's the pause, look at the sideline, check with me, audible. And so it's not going fast, but
right.
That's an interesting thing where when you think about the time, the tempo, and then having just those set number of plays, it's kind of like with the New England Patriots. I know you love when I mention them on this podcast.
Could you go a week without mentioning them?
Well, you know what? They've done a lot for the game of football. What they've done they started doing back in 2010, 2011, where they would just have packages of plays for their tempo situations. So, I remember reading something one time, they had their Bama series, so they rip off a 9-yard run, they get to 2nd and 1. Brady's just yelling out Bama 6, and everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to do on that play, so they're investing all that time on the front end in practice, with repetition and, in the film room, in the meeting room, going over it. And then, so when they're out there, it's just automatic and reflexive. The problem, with doing that all game long, kind of gets into you get into some moments where it gets a little unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
You might not have a play for this situation, or you were going to run this play and then this happened. And I mean, that's just natural play calling in general. I'm not stating any revolutionary, groundbreaking thought, but a lot of football just comes down to, the feedback you get from the conditions of the game, that real-time feedback, and tailoring your game plan approach to that. So I think Frost fell prey to kind of going, kind of in the direction that you were talking about,
mm-hmm.
like a 2-minute drill, basically all game.
Yeah.
Where there were multiple games, especially in 18 and 19, that we probably win if he just slows things down and lets our defense rest.
And I was going to kind of bring that up, even on the offensive side, aside of the quick tempo where the defense can't, get their legs under him, or our defense, same team. But that's also, I think, if you're running at that tempo all the time without any chance to, breathe yourself, that's where mistakes can be made. That's where a little sloppy play can happen. And again, now maybe you're not going 3 and out, but you're throwing the ball away, or you're misplaying.
You're missing a block.
Missing a block. You're misplaying a handoff. That just any number of things that forces the 11 guys on the other side of the field on your defense to have to trot back out there that much sooner.
Yep. Like Indiana 2019 is a great example of that for Nebraska. The game, Peyton Ramsey, Walt Fillier, Noah Vedral had to start, and then Luke McCaffrey had to come in for us. Our offense was clicking, and then we had some turnovers and let Indiana back in it. If we just would have slowed things down a little bit offensively and just started to lean on them a little bit more, there's a chance that defense can go out there and get a stop. Because, you got to play complementary football. Every phase is connected to each other in some form. Even if you got a punt, if your offense is good enough to dig out of a hole, so you're flipping field position when you do punt. And your defense is getting a break because your offense is going on long drives and kind of wearing, milking down the clock. And so, that's one of the things I really like about Matt Rule so far is I haven't seen any glaring issues with clock management or game management for the most part. I was a little perturbed with the use of timeouts last week against Illinois, but for the most part, this is still an offense that the training wheels are still very much on it in some regard. And so I got to, use those timeouts like that.
I just, I know people are sick of me saying it. I just go back to that Wisconsin game. And if we run the ball there in the fourth quarter, I think the outcome is, because at one point we had first down and we threw 3 incomplete passes in a row and then punted the ball away. Now I do not have Haas's eidetic memory, but that one is seared into my brain because I'm sitting there screaming to the extent that I could on a Thursday night with my family all asleep, but I'm screaming on Twitter, run the damn ball. In fact, I have a new shirt coming to the house here from copycorn.com, and it's not RTDB, it's hashtag RTFB. it's a John Johnston special.
That has John Johnston written all over it right there.
And if my children or if my son ask, even my wife, it will say, "What's that mean, Dad?" Run the football. But we know.
Run the football. Well,
But I would say it's in response to you, I would say that would be the one thing that I wish we could go back and change.
Exactly. I agree 100% because, when you were talking about that game, I was thinking about it. And that was the second to last game of the year last year. So November 19th, around that time frame. It was cold as fuck in Nebraska that weekend. I'm talking I think the wind chill was about 10 down in Lincoln. It was so cold and, everything was going on, with the season winding down. We weren't playing that well. I got offered really good tickets for free for that game, and I turned them down because I'm like, I'm not gonna go sit out in the cold for that. And then we're up, 14-9, I believe, with about 90 seconds left. And we're going into about a 40, 45 mile an hour north wind. And he who shall not be named anymore on this podcast, decides to dial up 3 straight pass plays. I'm not a run the damn ball purist where I don't believe at all in the passing game. I do like some elements of the passing game. But in the Big Ten West, in those conditions, you get what you can with the running game. And if you have to go the Iowa route and just pick up whatever's there and then lead the clock down and then punt, that's what you do. Because in the Big Ten West, and I know a lot of people like to clown on the Big Ten West, the weakest Power 5 division, all that, you see a lot of where the fundamentals of football matter in the Big Ten West. You don't have to sometimes go and win a game. You just have to not lose it.
Right.
And that's the one nice thing I'll say about Kirk Ferentz, just wait for somebody else to make the fatal mistake. Just keep doing what you do.
He's been not losing majority of the games
for 24
for 20 years.
And so that's
frustrating.
That's one of the things I like about Rule is he adds that element of good game management, good clock management, hey, we're going to run the football. Looking back at the Minnesota game, I would say maybe point to that last 2 drives where, Grant fumbled and then Sims threw the interception, as maybe that was an area where, we could have done a little bit better with our situational football. Maybe, on the Grant fumble, we're trying to run down the clock, at that point. And then maybe when it's tied 10-10, you continue to run down the clock instead of try to get into field position. Just because your chances of scoring in overtime, at least a field goal from the 25, are infinitely higher than trying to drive the length of the field with what we had to work with offensively.
This is going to, I don't know, hopefully people understand where I'm coming from. If I could change the outcome of just one game in the first half of the season, I would say Minnesota. And look, yes, it would be great to flip the score and have beaten Colorado in Boulder. It would have been great to have shocked number 2 Michigan. But
no, I agree 100% with you, man.
It's a division game. It's a game you need to win if you're going to, start your march towards. Look, say what you want, like you said, the laughing stock division of college football as far as Power 5. But you win that game, you're in a much different place to win the division. Have a chance to establish your dominance. Mm-hmm. And so now we're 1-1 in the division with a win over Illinois, and of course the loss to Minnesota, to 1-2 in the conference. When you throw Michigan in there, hey, it's Big Ten from here on out. You got to buckle up, and you have to, like you said, Hoss, you have to play the type of football that needs to be played in October and November in the conditions that you're going to be facing. Again,
if you move to Omaha, Nebraska, you don't, and that we have winters where it gets snowy, it gets icy, you don't go out and buy a Corvette as your driver. You go out and you buy yourself a Toyota 4Runner. You get some good tires on it. You know, you got to be able to run the football when it matters. You got to be able to, you know, play the field position game. You got to have a plan for wind. And wind is probably the biggest detrimental weather factor that we face in this area of the country. You can still throw the football when it's raining, when it's snowing. It's when it's windy that it really gets affected, you know. And so when you look at all that, the Minnesota game is what as time goes on, is really vexing, because that really disrupted any good start to this season. Building some confidence right out of the gate. You know, for Sims, I know that Sims had his turnover problem at Georgia Tech, and at some point you are what the stats say you are. But at the same time, you know, he had no opportunity to ever get comfortable and confident this season when he was the starter. I mean, you're talking about a hostile environment at Minnesota. You're talking about a hostile environment at Colorado. And so what that turns into is he's playing like crap because he doesn't have he hasn't had the ability yet to build his confidence in this, you know, friendly confines of a home game, you know, where the crowd's not screaming.
Correct me if I'm wrong. He's taken one step at home, or one snap at home, and it was against Michigan when Harburg's helmet got pulled off.
Yep. And he came in against Louisiana Tech too.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, I'm going to go out and say this. You will see Jeff Sims as the starter again at some point this season. He is our best chance to win games. And now that we are in a spot where we're playing at home, we're not playing, you know, Minnesota, we're not playing, you know, on the road at Colorado. We have an opportunity to see what the offense can do with him at the helm. I don't think you'll see him start against Northwestern, but I think you'll see him get worked into the game plan. And then I think, you know, because they're going week to week on who the quarterback is, I think that you'll see Sims take control of the job moving forward. And I do think that he will play much better moving down the stretch of this season.
We talked earlier about if the Northern Illinois game and the Minnesota game were flipped, or Louisiana Tech, Minnesota, you know, something like that. If you're starting with one of those, I don't want to denigrate anybody, but softer opponents, not conference, not Power 5 opponents at home, maybe it does provide Sims the ability to settle into a little bit more of a positive rhythm than the negative rhythm that he kind of fell into.
Building confidence, building self-efficacy. You know, that's all it comes down to. He never was afforded that opportunity this season. It's no one's fault. You play the hand that's dealt to you, you know. But now I think that you're going to see a different Sims emerge when he gets back in there. Because his arm, his throwing ability is it's better than Harburg's, you know. So we're going to need it moving forward. And at the very least, if Harburg maintains his control on the starting job, put Sims in as a running back, put Sims in as a slot receiver. We're going to fire every bullet in the gun. Like John Madden said, load the wagon. You know, load the wagon, just get after it. You know, you're going to need everything that you can to, you know, contend for a division championship.
It needs to be, and I hope Matt Rule, Marcus Satterfield understand this. If you're going to compete over the back end of the schedule, the last 6 games, and again, the toughest one is behind you. You know, Michigan is done. Michigan's in the past. You can't do anything for it. Got Northwestern and Purdue at home, on the road at Michigan State, home against Maryland, on the road at Wisconsin. So we talked about 2 places in November that are probably not going to be too terribly fun to play at, and then home against Iowa. But 6 games left, and your best chance of success is all hands on deck. Yep. You know, everybody's got to be ready to go every snap. I want to shift away from Nebraska, which is not because we're Corn Nation. But we've talked quite a bit about, you know, obviously it's a bye week, so not any game necessarily to talk about, or coming off a bye week, I should say. We talked about the Big Ten schedule coming up. We've talked about the 2-minute drill and 2-minute offense, because how it really helped Colorado State beat Boise State. What I want to talk about now, and look, we're not just bringing this up because we're Nebraska and they're a hated rival. Everybody is talking about this, because when you want all eyes on your program, you're going to get all eyes on your program, whether it's in good context or bad. And that is Friday night's final double overtime shocker as Stanford went into Boulder and beat Colorado 46-43 after Colorado was up 29-0 at halftime. Hoss, we have seen some epic meltdowns, but look, this is a little bit of Schadenfreude, if I pronounced that right. I'm not sure. I don't speak German. I also don't know if Schadenfreude's a good thing to have. It's celebrating other people's misfortune.
It's Colorado.
It's Colorado. I was going to say everybody gets a passing when it's Colorado. I have seen some epic meltdowns. None have brought me as much joy as Colorado, the program that runs their mouth more than the top teams in the country, and pointing at their wrists and doing everything, marking up the O in Eugene, Oregon, and doing this, that, and the other thing.
Fabricating a complete bullshit story about Matt Rule pregame.
Right. And taking one on the chin to what has become, no offense or whatever offense is intended, one of the worst programs in the Pac-12. Stanford had a 1 win heading into Friday night.
Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of people. And you know what?
Couldn't happen to a bigger bunch of dicks either.
We knew it from the start. They're a bunch of frauds. I mean, like I said it after they beat TCU. TCU's not a good football team.
TCU's better than Colorado has since that meeting.
Yeah, they've actually diverged. Yeah, their paths. I said it after we played them too. I still said Colorado is not a good football team, and that wasn't sour grapes or being a sore loser. It's just Colorado is not very good. They took advantage of TCU's inability to want to run the football. They could run it, and they did it so very effectively. They just didn't want to. Mm-hmm. And then they took advantage of our offense melting down. And so when you look at it, they got their ass kicked by Oregon. They should have lost to Colorado State. They, kind of hung around with USC, but I think there's some serious questions about how good USC is at this point, after they got buzzsawed last night by Notre Dame. And so when you look at it in totality, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say this: Nebraska finishes with a better record than Colorado.
I'm going to say this because I think it just bears repeating. You have been trumpeting that remark for a few weeks now. So has our fearless leader, John Dam Johnston. It is not new to these ears or to the people who listen to either the Coronation Overreaction or the 5 Heart Podcast, and probably Monday Night Therapy, and maybe even 5 Points of Contact. I don't know. We're running a lot of shows here on Coronation.
Running more shows than Dion's got watches.
That's probably not true.
Yeah, no.
And I'll tell you what, personally, I don't know if I'm excited or saddened that I go to the same tailor as Deion Sanders.
Do you really?
I do. He's a guy in St. Louis. He's been doing Deion suits for, since the 90s. And I didn't
know you were that wealthy.
Oh, my suits are not anywhere near as, but last time I was there, which was just a shade over a week ago. And I think I've talked to you about this, the reasons why I feel it pending need for a black suit. But I was talking to my guy over there, and he said, yeah, we were just up in Idaho at JJ Watt's place, getting him all squared away for his TV analyst stuff.
Damn.
I was like, well,
it's like, well, you next time you see JJ Watt, you tell him that Greg Mahochko was just in the store and you get him squared away.
That's right. Yeah. To be like, and ask if he could hook me up with TJ Watt because I'm a Steeler fan.
Oh, that's right. You like that horrible, awful franchise. I've told you this before. I've told you that they're in the top 3 teams that I hate in the NFL. Steelers, Broncos, Packers.
I just didn't think you needed to bring it up again. I thought we were past that, but I guess not.
No, it's TJ Watt. who should have been flagged for pass interference in 2016 against Jordan Westerkamp.
I'm sorry. I don't have that eidetic memory that you have.
Go back and watch.
Was that the overtime?
Yeah, that was the overtime.
Okay. Game. Yeah, I do remember that now. You're right. But since then, he's become a defensive MVP.
I'm never going to make anyone apologize for their fandom, unless you're an Iowa fan.
No.
Then you owe the world an apology.
Or a Colorado fan because you're, again, a sack of shit.
Yeah, you probably smell like granola and Birkenstocks.
That's not what I thought you were going to say, like, you smell like urine because you overfilled the bag or the balloon or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
I can't say they smell like Coors Banquet because,
you could change that. There are better beers out there.
I do. When I'm up in East Lansing, I don't know what areas of Michigan have Yingling, but I'm going to pick, I was looking at their website and they do sell it in Michigan and Indiana. Mm-hmm. And I have to pass through Indiana on my way to East Lansing. I'm going to pick up a couple of cases.
You should.
Bring back home.
You should. Last time I went to Kentucky, to Louisville, and got some. It's a shame that you're going to go through Indiana, which means you have to go through Illinois, but I'm still about 5 hours south at least.
You're old downstate.
Down here by St. Louis is all I can say.
Yeah, I'm going to avoid the 88 corridor on my way to and from there, so just take 80 all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably stop in Chicago on the way back just for a quick breakfast at one of the places like over in Garfield Ridge. Nice little – I'd be shocked if anybody that is listening knows about this, but the Three Sons Pancake House in Garfield Ridge, one of the best breakfasts I've ever had. It was so good that I'm willing to go an hour out of the way on my way home from East Lansing to eat breakfast there.
That looks – hold on. Three Sons Restaurant. Chicago, Illinois, technically, I guess. Breakfast and brunch, pancake, and all right. I don't need to be looking at this at 10 o'clock at night. I don't want. I don't want to stop what we're doing and go and make pancakes, even though they won't be as good.
I tell you, it's one of the best breakfasts I've ever had, and the price is nice. I think a huge breakfast sandwich, unlimited coffee and orange juice, and like some hash browns, like $9 when I was there in 2018.
Not bad. I
just flipped the waitress at 20, and I was like, "Keep the change."
I'm gonna tell you what, though, take into account inflation. I bet you it's gonna be closer to $14.
Yeah, probably this economy.
I don't. I wanted to go off into a pancake conversation, but realistically, again, I'm a waffle man.
Waffles are too airy.
Stop.
Yeah.
Just, you know what? All right. So 2 things we've learned we disagree on: our breakfast carbohydrate of choice and Steelers.
Yeah.
So just because your team has been more successful lately, but I'll tell you what my team doesn't have to deal with: Swifties. Boom.
Okay, you know what? Can I go on a rant here? Can I just go?
Only matter of time until she discovers Pat Fryermuth.
I'm all in favor of that. I need to go on a rant here. I have been a Chiefs fan since 2003, the year that Dante Hall was running back kicks.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like I had just gotten into Nebraska football the year before in 2002. That was when I really got into it. And then in 2003, watching football, I'm like, I need to pick an NFL team. So I asked my dad, I'm like, what NFL team do you like? Because he's always been a bigger college football fan, bigger Nebraska fan. That was because, I didn't have to ask him what college team he liked when, I started getting into football. I already knew,
It'd have been hilarious if, as a prank, you were like, Creighton.
Yeah, no, he does like Creighton basketball, which is why I like Creighton basketball.
Oh, you're not a J-sker.
No, I actually don't even watch when the teams play each other.
Okay.
Because like last year, I went to the game in Omaha, and I literally was just like, "Hey, whoever wins, they win." But that was the first time in years that I'd actually watched it because I like both.
Okay, let's move
on. But so I was become a Chiefs fan because my dad was a Chiefs fan. His dad was a Chiefs fan from way back in the AFL days. Hank Stram. And so, like, being a Chiefs fan for a lot of years was not easy. There was a lot of darkness from, about 2007 to, 2012. And then, Andy Reid shows up, they get respectable. I used to be I get a Shields gift card for Christmas every year from my grandma. And every December 26th, I'd go up to Shields and I always just had this thing where I was like, whatever Husker gear they have here, I've already bought it, pretty much, the stuff that I want. So, like, I used the gift card on Chiefs gear. From 2013 to 2017, I used to be able to go there day after Christmas, buy whatever I wanted. They had everything. Now they're sold out of the good stuff by, like, Halloween. And, like, I'm happy. I'm happy that people like the Chiefs. But, like, at the same time, if you don't remember, and I'm not a big gatekeeper, okay? But, like, I'm going to gatekeep on this one. If you don't remember Tyler Palko, Tyler Thigpen, Brady Quinn, Kyle Orton playing for the quarterback for the Chiefs, Thomas Jones playing running back for the Chiefs, Tony Maioki, whatever, the tight end from Iowa. Ricky Stanzi from Iowa was on the Chiefs roster one time. If you don't remember those, you do not get to you're in you can still be a Chiefs fan. You're just on a probationary period.
I feel like
do a check-in, a parole check-in. If the Chiefs were to miss the playoffs, in this year, next year, whatever, we'd have to check in a year later and be like, so you're still a Chiefs fan, or did you jump ship? Like, I watched a lot of shitty football when they went 2-12.
Yeah.
Or 2-14, I mean.
It's the definition of if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best.
You know why I hate Denver so much? Aside from just being a Chiefs fan.
Mm-hmm. Why?
I hate Denver and Green Bay so much because back in like 2012 to 2015, that time frame, if I were to go up to Oscars in West Omaha on a Sunday afternoon to get some pizza, wings, beer, and watch some NFL with my friends, you open the door of that place, it was full of Denver fans and Green Bay fans, and they were the most arrogant pricks about their teams, and they just, the Chiefs? Now it's like, that's why I relish in the fact that the Chiefs have not lost to Denver since 2015.
I was gonna say it's almost a decade.
I was in my third week of community college when they last lost to Denver. I have a master's degree and I've been working post graduation for over a year now. We're just on a rant about professional football, but I had to say it, and I don't like the whole Taylor Swift thing. I don't think Taylor Swift's music's very good. So there, I said it.
Whoa.
I don't know if she likes receipts as much as Dion does.
It's funny. We talk about like the streaks, and I'm a Steelers fan. That's why I got to bring it up. And then, folks, we're gonna get out of here because I know most of you probably tuned out when we started talking about NFL. The last time the Cleveland Browns beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh in the regular season was in 2003.
Ooh.
Which was before the Steelers drafted Ben Roethlisberger.
And you know who Ben Roethlisberger's first quarterback's coach was at Pittsburgh?
I do.
You want to tell us who it was?
Mark Whipple.
Enemy of the podcast, Mark Whipple.
In all, home or away, the Cleveland. Let me put it this way: Pittsburgh against Cleveland since 2000 is 37-8-1.
Damn,
that's a statistic I like. Talk about little brother or our bitch. So anyway, this is not a
playoffs to them a few years ago. You did lose in the playoffs to them a few years ago.
Yeah, I said regular season.
All
right, that's it. All right, that is it for this episode. We joked before we started. It's like we'll probably go a half hour on this thing, and here we are, almost to an hour. We appreciate all of you. Make sure that you drop a comment as you're listening to the show. I know a friend of the show, Josh, does. And we probably won't read it, but that's not. I mean, I don't go back and read. Who's got that kind of time? Haas might.
I do not. The late great Brian Toll taught me long ago: never read the comments.
That's fair.
Well, let me tell you, there have been a few times I didn't heed that advice, and I've found myself being really pissed off.
That's also true.
Yeah.
So that's it for this episode of Corn Nation Overreaction. Next week, we'll have a game to talk about as Northwestern is in Lincoln on Saturday, 2:30 kickoff against our beloved Huskers. The 100th anniversary celebration of Memorial Stadium should be a great time. Let's celebrate doubly by really winning the battle of the NUs. So for my friend, my brother, my broadcast partner, Haas Reuter, I'm Greg Mahochko. This is Corn Nation Reaction. Scratch that. This is Corn Nation Overreaction. I knew something didn't sound right. And go Big Red.
Win the damn game. Nebraska 40, Northwestern 13.
Score 40. Win big.
Yep.